Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Shears. I am here today with Miss Denise from the Ambitious Groomer. Denise, welcome, welcome, welcome. And today we're going to talk about a little, actually getting to know Denise a little bit more and the ambitious groomer. And then in this episode, we're going to be talking about hiring, staff retention, avoiding that toxic workplace habits that tend to come out of either not hiring right or not really knowing how to lead properly, and then getting into leadership with confidence. So we really want to make sure that you all are set up to be able to do that. So again, for those that are new, my name is Crystal Lee. I am the groomer's accountant with Pet Biz Advisors, and welcome, welcome. So Denise, I'm going to let you introduce yourself formally, if you don't mind. Tell us a little bit about what's going on for you.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me, Crystal. This is so exciting.
Sure.
I always love being on the receiving end of a podcast. So my name is Denise Heroux. I have 3 locations in the Cleveland area, Cleveland, Ohio area. I have been in the grooming industry for a really long time, going on 28 years. So a little history. I started out, as a lot of listeners probably do. They were in a toxic work environment. I was a vet groomer for 13 years, and it was a horrible environment to be in. And I knew the next step. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. But I will say, it's so funny we're talking about all this. I would have been the best ideal employee if I was treated properly. I wouldn't have left.
Okay.
So fun facts. I know Crystal doesn't know some of this stuff about me, but
Yay. Learn.
for 13 years, I would have stayed in a heartbeat. I had it really good, minus the management system. So I have had my businesses going on 11 years now. So I started with the one. And now I have delved into helping other business owners because I was that person who did not know business and just opened up out of necessity and did all the wrong things. So what I did know
Okay.
I could do, what I knew I could do though, and I excel at, is leading a team, because that's what I did at the vet clinic. So
That's awesome. And that's typically one of the harder skill sets to learn. It can be learned, but the thing is, it's a little bit nicer when you have like that I guess, ability to be able to do that. Like you're kind of like born into like almost a leadership role, but it definitely can be learned. So no worries there. So if you don't consider
Mhm.
yourself a leader, we're going to help you out. So
Yes,
yeah,
it was always
awesome.
natural for me. Yeah, natural for me.
Hmm.
Natural with people. It's always been a knack. It doesn't. I also want to tell everybody, because we always hear that we want to work with dogs, right?
Hmm.
And just because you're strong with people doesn't mean you like. I don't want to say I like that attribute, but it doesn't mean that you always want that attribute all the time. Sometimes
Hmm.
I wish I wasn't a people person. It has its own pros and cons to it as well. So I've learned throughout the years to really lean into my strengths and not shy away from them.
Gotcha. It's funny you mentioned the fact that you said that you would have been the best employee if you were treated as such, as well. But I say right the opposite, guys. I really do. I always say I am the absolute worst employee you would ever have because I started my first business at the age of 19 and I did not look back. I mean, I've been employees, don't get me wrong. I have been an employee for many people since then, but it's one of those things, I'm like, I don't like being told what to do. I'm sorry, I just don't. I'm like, "I can do this better. I can do this better." And so, that's just kinda, I guess, one of my traits. It's maybe not the best one, but that's reality. That's just the way it is. So,
Right.
so Denise, I know. So I'm excited about diving into the whole idea of what makes a great leader in the grooming industry. Okay. So my first question would be for you. Many grooming business owners start out as solo groomers, right? That's the easiest way to get
Correct.
into it. You start out by yourself, but then they find themselves kind of forced into leadership roles. So, what do you think are the biggest challenges that they face stepping into that side of the leadership role?
I think that they underestimate what that role entails. And
Oh, okay.
when we, yeah, I think that as much as we think we're good with people, until you become that enforcer, right? That person that everyone goes to, it is a completely different scary type role. And I think what
Mm,
I've noticed the most in all my endeavors is that people tend to underestimate what goes into it. I can
okay.
also say that it is where a lot of ex-employees who have opened up on their own that they knew better, they wanted whatever. I don't knock anyone who wants
Mhm.
to become a business owner.
Sure.
When you make it look easy, it's a false sense of security. And I know that through all the years, I've made it look easy, and I see a lot of people stumble afterwards.
Okay. Okay. So definitely it's not knowing exactly like how to start, where to start, but then also the maintaining of it. It's not just knowing the ins and outs of business, which is what, obviously we do on a daily basis, but then also that customer service when you are the one-stop shop, when you are the person that has to take in everything, there is no buffer anymore. You have no boss or manager that you can go to. It's only you. It's you and the client, and then that's it. So I think that that is a kind of a sometimes a harsh reality. Some people thrive in it, right? Some people love it. They're like, yes, I want to be able to have that direct connection with my clients, make all the decisions, and more power to you. Clearly, I love that part of the industry. It's what I do. So,
Right? It,
but yeah, but I think a lot of it is it's a little overwhelming at times.
I struggled. I can, if there's rules that were in place, like at the vet clinic I was at, it was really easy. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, these are the rules I have. Sorry. It was very easy for me to live in those parameters where I worked. And then all of a sudden it was sticker shock for me. It was like shell shock. I'm like, what the heck? Now I'm the one who's in charge. So when clients would argue, it was now a personal side, right? And it was really hard to navigate that. And once again, I love how you touch base on these things. And as much as you and I have done things together, we haven't gone into like history. That is
Sure.
actually why I have started what I did, because I went 2 years of not having everything organized, and it was all willy nilly. The
Okay.
minute that I sat down and got my policies, my procedures, my rules for the clients to follow, like all of those guidelines and my boundaries, I found
Mhm.
out that employees and clients don't question where it comes from. So when I learned how to separate myself from my brand and I wasn't
Yeah.
my business, it
Mhm.
was so much easier for me to enforce. And guess what? New
Okay.
employees and clients coming in don't know where it came from.
Okay. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, they think it's always been there. Like that's it.
right. It just exists.
Yeah. So I do have a question for you.
Yes.
So about the whole transitioning from the groomer to the leader. What are some of the mind shifts, I guess struggles that you've seen from people going from a groomer to a leader? Can you give me some examples of that?
The people pleasing side. I think that
Ooh,
that's the
yeah.
biggest struggle. We are the service providers. We want to make everything right. We want to give the clients the best thing ever, right? Best haircut, the best experience. So I learned that the people pleasing aspect was really hard and is very hard for people to get over, and setting boundaries.
Setting those boundaries. And also the boundary setting especially is not just for the customer, but it's also within staff. And it's also kind of for yourself if you think about it. Like what boundaries do you set for yourself? Because we tend to want to push and go and groom more, groom more, groom more, and then to the point that we burn ourselves out, right? And I'm living this right now. Yes, pot, this is the kettle, it's calling right now. Um,
And that's what we
and
do.
so, because it's tax season for me, I'm right in the middle of tax season, so if you're watching this on a recording, but yeah, I tend to not take the best care of myself, like, I don't get enough sleep, I tend to overthink, overstimulate, with my constantly at the computer, I don't take the time for myself, and I think when I started working with groomers, that tended to be the number one issue I saw with almost every single groomer I spoke with. Like, what is lunch? I don't even get to eat during the day. I can't even take a break. I can't sit down because I'm back to back. One groomer friend of mine recently told me, she's like, it's like, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. This is the first time I've got to go to the bathroom today. And it's just like it's those things. It's like back to back to back, and I'm like, we've got to do better in self care. I mean, I say we because we all do, but it's just really
Yes.
paying attention to that and stuff. So yeah, for
Hmm.
sure. And then
It
you also
breaks.
have. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, it breaks my heart when I see on Facebook or on any social media where you see the stories of I'm already working 7 days a week and 10-hour days and I can't keep up with the workload. And I'm like, okay, no one ever said you had to, right? I think
Yeah.
that that's just this whole thing. So it really does. When there's people really overworking themselves, it breaks my heart to see it on social media as well.
Sure, sure. And then you couple that with something that we all tend to deal with, especially when we own our own businesses, and that's imposter syndrome, right? That tends to come up a lot because with groomers, you not only have it within the art of grooming the dog itself or the cat, whichever, because I know you do cats as well. But
Mhm.
then you also have being a business owner, being the business owner and having that, you know, I'm not really a business owner because I've heard people say that. They're like, "Well, you're just running your own thing. You're not an actual entrepreneur. You're not a real legit business owner." And guess what? You are. You absolutely are a business owner. So don't let people tell you that you're not. And so that's do you see imposter syndrome a lot in with your clients?
I I saw it a lot in myself and still do in other aspects as I
Okay.
grow. But I see it, that lack of confidence. Who am I? I was the same way. And uh, it really, once again, my driving force to help empower business owners because you can do it and you can do it your own way. And that's, I think, where, and I got hung up with imposter syndrome is we're information overload, right? Like you can, how to be a better business owner, and you can Google that. And there's a ton of different people you can follow. There's different points of views. And I'm a reader. So when I was doing research for myself and helping myself through some of my insecurities, and especially when I started learning my business, I learned that I would take all these things in and that they always tell you do it this way, and this way, and you'll succeed, right? This is the only way to do it. And it never sat right with me. So every book I read, I felt more and more defeated. And everything I would watch, I felt more defeated because it's saying, do it this way. And it just didn't feel right. And finally, I don't even know when that turning point was. I started pulling things that resonated with me, whether when I was reading or watching things. And that's how I started building my business was, oh, I can go ahead and do this. Now, I'd like to state, Crystal does the accounting and all that other stuff. There are most certainly facts that you have to follow when it comes to having a healthy business, but when it comes to running the innards, there's not one set way. And that's what's really cool is helping owners find their way. So, full circle back to imposter syndrome, I think that's one of the main things is we feel like we have to do it a certain way in order to succeed. And we don't. We
Sure.
can be ourselves and start picking and choosing.
Yeah, so when we start comparing, it's basically when we start comparing ourselves in our business style to
Mhm.
others, and we're like, "Okay, I'm not where they are." No, but you're exactly where you need to be as a business owner because
Mhm.
that's where you start from, that's where you grow from. And so, just out of curiosity, do you have a specific book that just resonated with you while you were going through this process?
Oh goodness.
Put you on the
I
spot.
think there's so many. There's so many. I want to say, and I just had this conversation with somebody else. Uh, because you're trying to find your way and it's so overwhelming. I really liked the book Everything is Figure Outable. I don't know if you've read that
Okay.
one.
I
It's
have not.
really it is a really it's a very easy read, but the really basic concept of it is that no matter how crazy everything gets, you're able to figure it out. Right. And I'll still even say, like, that's the whole like montage of the book is everything is figure outable. I used to have that on one of my dry erase boards, even for my groomers. Like, it's okay. Everything is figure outable. So for me, I know it sounds really silly, but for that imposter syndrome, just hearing and reading something that says it's okay, everything is figure outable really helped me through a lot of my mental constrictions I put on myself.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something that I tend to do often that's really helped me out. And if I feel like I'm hitting a wall, so to speak, and or I can't figure something out, I will just ask myself, "What if?" Just 2 words, "What if?" Like, "What if I could figure this out? Like, what would happen for me?" Or, "What if that this all my goals for this year came true? Like, how would that set me up for life?" Type thing. And just if you feel like you're stuck, I do recommend just doing, "Okay, what if I weren't stuck? What if I could figure this out? What if I could figure out, how to do social media marketing better? What if I could be a good leader in my business for my staff?" And again, and it starts kind of creating, you start opening that creative side in your brain. And then that way you start getting what I call inspiration, so to speak, that kind of comes to you naturally. And you'll start seeing different things from a different perspective. It's really cool. And it's simple, it's free, and it takes 2 seconds to do. So, so it's a really
Those
cool
little
concept.
montages. Yeah, those
Hmm.
little things that you can just
Yeah,
jot down or
exactly.
just, when it gets so overwhelming, you can just go right back to it. And it's really cool. The newest book that came out, and I don't know if you've read it yet, Mel Robbins' Let Them Theory. Um,
I've
that
heard of
is a
it.
really good
Hmm.
book. I used to do I always knew of the let them theory, but what I like about the book is not only is it teaches you the let them aspect, it also then teaches you the let me aspect because there's another side to that because we have control
Oh,
and we
yeah.
can, yeah, so it's really neat. That is another easy read that I really enjoyed. That helped me through navigating the tough situations of leadership and people and being the one that everyone goes to and not taking things personal. I think that's the hardest part for me, right? I think that's when we pour ourselves into
Yeah.
our businesses, not taking it personal is huge. And
Yeah.
it is most certainly a self care.
Absolutely. So kind of on to that as far as, leadership and people. So we know that leadership isn't just about hiring the right people. There's a little bit more to it than that. It's about setting the tone in the workplace. So what are some leadership styles that you think work really well within the grooming industry that you've noticed?
I don't know if there's really necessarily one leadership style that I would say works really well. What I've
Okay.
noticed is being affluent in all the different leadership styles. So we are in a very neurodivergent industry. So we pull from a lot of different walks of lives. And when you can get all of these different leadership styles under your belt, or even just knowing the definition of them, you can really start to navigate the problems that may arise or really watching how people learn and their learning style. So as much as I'm not that person that you hire or that you come to when you want necessarily do it this way, and this way. I am the person who helps you figure out how to lead and manage to your style and how you want your business set up. I'm so brand specific and you got to work with yourself and not against yourself. So I have found that each person needs a leadership style sometimes. And sometimes I'm walking in, I know I didn't get into this in the introduction, but we have 25-ish employees. So let me tell you, that's a whole hodgepodge of different life
That is.
experiences. Like, and ranging anywhere from low 20s, actually teens, 19. I think I have 18 to 19, all the way up to at one point 74. So lots of
Yeah.
experience, lots of different life experiences and walks of life, different
Mhm.
mental capabilities and how we learn. So
Mhm.
I just became diverse. I just learned all the different styles, and I started honing
Yeah.
in on who needs what.
Okay. Yeah. And that would probably take a little bit of time and practice and experience to be able to do that, obviously.
Yes.
So I know there was one particular situation I had with a client back in the day. And one of the situations that she found herself repeatedly in is that, she was great at what she did as with grooming, for example. She was great at what she did, um, but she was not the best people manager, so to speak. She could not manage people really at all. And she would often come across as, this is per her staff, like almost cold in a way,
Yep.
because she was just very, just get the job done, just put your head down, get the job done, because that was her style. But the problem was a lot of the people in there were very much, empathic feelers, like they were very much in tune with their emotions. And they're like, I can't cut my emotions off like that. So do you have any suggestions for people out there that their style definitely is not working with their current staff? And in order to appear more warm and approachable, do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah. So I like to call it a pendulum, right? I was the extreme people pleaser, let everyone, we're all adults. We know how to clean, we know how to do these things, we'll all get along, more of a free spirit when it came to managing. And then those that leadership style, that people pleasing has consequences. And I learned those consequences, and then I pendulum swang over to the other side where I was, am I allowed to swear on here? I don't know what we can do. I was that
You're fine. Yeah.
I was that hard ass person. I'm not gonna let anyone come in. I'm gonna make sure I micromanage. I'm going, and not even micromanage, but I'm gonna make sure I can control everything. We're not letting me get hurt again. It's really what it came down to. And now I have to find that in between. So how do I find that in between? And how am I finding that in between? I know I'm a very supportive person, right? And really, when it comes to the employee side and anyone, you want to feel support, safe, and like you're heard, right? We may not all agree on everything, but those are the biggest key factors that I have learned because that's also what I want. So I do get stuck in that day to day. I can be that person who will come off unapproachable. So for me, I made sure that if I'm in my office, I have my office happens to be by the back door. So I make it a point to say good morning to everybody individually, not necessarily as a whole. I make sure it's, very personal. How was your night last night? How's your morning going? My girls are not morning people. So sometimes I do get some joy in being over the top. I am a morning person and I try to get them going. But they sometimes don't appreciate that, but I do. Um, I have found I'm a forgetful person. I don't mean to. We are so hyper focused on our businesses. We have a million and one tasks. We wear different, like so many hats. And I learned I have to put certain things in my phone as a reminder or jot it down. Like, make sure to check in with my manager. She had a doctor's appointment. Ask her how it went. So I have to schedule sometimes those little nuances so that I'm making sure that I'm doing them. So that's one way to really help that whole go-getter, you just do your job mentality. You find the ways to make them feel seen and heard and that you see them. And it's little things like that that go a long way.
Mhm. Yeah, and it does make a big difference. I think it tends to be what the employees are looking for, to be seen and heard. because if you're
Mhm.
not taking an interest in them on like more of a basic human level, then why are they helping you run your business? Like, they want that support. Sometimes they need that support, especially in the beginning. When you're getting to know someone, they're trying to see if they're a good fit. You're trying to see if they're a good fit. And if you don't have that communication in the beginning, it just kind of goes off the rails, right? It can just be like, yeah,
Mhm.
I don't feel like I belong here. And oftentimes we also see within the working environment that, you know, nature, doesn't like vacuums basically. And so somebody else will fill in that role. And oftentimes it's another coworker or groomer. Unfortunately, in a lot of situations I've seen that are very competitive, and so the newer person feels like they can't exceed or excel within the company because they're always trying to live up to a certain standard, or they're kind of being maybe passive aggressively put down by other people. So as an owner, that's another thing to really look out for, to make sure that your newer people feel welcome, but also your current people know that they're not trying to be replaced and that they are also still appreciated. So that way it kind of cuts down any of that passive aggressive tendencies or competition. I just see a lot of competition
Mhm.
within the groom shops. So let's talk a little bit about hiring the right team. So hiring in the grooming industry can be tricky. What are some of the or what are some of the things that grooming business owners should look for when hiring a new employee?
For me, and what I've learned and what I have seen, one of the biggest mistakes is not knowing where you want to go, right? When a business owner is feeling the crunch of saying no to people and they just hire because someone is a groomer or they need a body in. So I always recommend, once again, I'm not that do it this way, or this way. You want to look for this quality, you want to look for that quality because everyone's business is different. Who you can handle, everyone is personally different. What your business needs is different. So I always tell everyone sit down and really hash out what your business looks like on a day to day of how it's running. So for me, I went ahead and I knew I always wanted support staff. I knew I didn't want to be the face of my business, and I knew I would have employees. I didn't know exactly what that looked like, but I knew what I wanted my day to day to look like. So, with that in mind, I was able to really start honing in on who would fit that who is a team player, who is in it. When I was growing, I couldn't afford to have a workhorse groomer who wanted to do high volume because I didn't have that. I needed someone who was either from corporate who wanted to hone in on their skills more and have more support, or maybe someone who was newer that I could go ahead and train up into what I needed to have. So when it comes to hiring the right people, you need to have an employee profile of what are the traits that I always like to tell everyone three different things. You have your, uh, I think backwards. I'm a backwards thinker. So you have your ideal perfect employee profile. You have your non negotiables because we've all been there before and we know what we don't want in an employee or in our business. And then you have to find that happy medium. So, where is that in betweener? Where are the bare basics that you can have? I can train talent. I can't train personality, let's say, for my front desk. That's the most important position. I need someone with a bubbly personality. I can train them how to use the system. So it really is working with what your business stands for.
Yeah. And then I often have seen that with reception and people who do the check in and check out, that that people connection, and not really people pleasing, but the people connection where the customers and your clients feel very welcome. Like you said, it's that warm, bubbly personality. That's
Hmm.
almost impossible to train. Like you have to kind of be born with that a little bit. Again, you can hone these skills, but you have to have kind of like an already like natural, like you said, natural ability to be able to do that before. And so yeah, most computer skills, how to actually book in the appointments and the pets and things like that, that can pretty much be trained. It is a skill set in itself, it really is, but it can be put in there. So, yeah, definitely when you're looking for certain ones, and then also with bathers, I have come across several of my clients with the bathers, where are they wanting to go? Like, are they wanting to just kind of stay bathers? Are they wanting to be an apprentice? Like, where are they wanting to go within the shop? That's another thing to look for. Do you have someone who is trying to rush into getting to that groom apprenticeship, or do you actually have a bather for a while? So that's something else you're going to have to look for. Now, I understand that
Yep.
bathers are a little bit easier to place than groomers, so that may not be as big of a deal long term, but still, that is something though to keep in mind whenever you're hiring for someone, like what their intentions are, because it seems to be a lot of the communication issue that sometimes come up, that if you hire on a bather and they're wanting to actually become a groomer, but you're not doing it fast enough for them, then they start having some, again, reservations
Mhm.
about being within your company, and they might even start bad mouthing a little bit, because I've seen that happen. And that toxic, it creates a toxic work environment for not only them but for everyone else that's working there. And so, yeah, so you have to kind of be very mindful of that when you're hiring.
So when you were talking about all that, I see the twofold side of all of that. So when it
Mhm.
comes to my end, I really evaluate what I need out of my bather. So do I want someone who I have to train up, or do I just need someone who wants to come in and bathe and they have, let's say, other goals? Usually bathers are an entry level position. So it's people who want to get their foot in the door, if an in-betweener, if they're going to school for vet tech or for some other form of into the animal field, they want to have a job. So it really just depends on what my business needs. So I will hire based off of my business needs, not just getting someone in there. But you brought up really well that if someone wants to go through everything and they want to apprentice, I've had this come through too, especially in my interview process when I ask them what do they want to do with their lives, right? And if they say become a groomer, I set very, very clear expectations of what that means for me to train them up, because I will train people up. And that is a possibility. So I set those expectations very clear. It may not go far, like they may only hear what they want to hear. I can't change that. But if I know that I have very clear expectations set ahead of time and I can go ahead and answer those questions and tell them what that looks like in my facility, then hopefully the people who it doesn't fit for would want to go ahead and know that that's not a good fit and you're not wasting your time trying to train somebody. I had one person who wanted to do that and she wanted a quick track to grooming. And I said, I'm not it. And she ended up going down the road to a corporate salon because that's what they do. That's not what I do. So, knowing what your
Sure.
business needs and hiring off of that, along with knowing what clear expectations that you can give them and what your limits of your business are huge when you're doing interviews.
Yeah. And that could also lead to staff retention issues, right? Especially if you don't get that confirmation very early on. I see that a lot. I see a really big turnover in this industry with staff coming and going. And I think that honestly, the communication on the onset is what probably stems that more than anything. It's not even the fact they're not in the right environment or a good environment. And I know a lot of business owners take that personally when someone leaves. It's just not a good fit because either they're wanting to do, mostly it's a communication issue. They're wanting to do something that they're not getting in your shop, essentially is what it is. And a lot of that, like you said, is on the interview, the initial interview. What are their expectations? What are your shop's expectations and what you need? And do those, intermingle or do they coexist very well? And so if not, then you're going to see a higher turnover rate. So, Denise, what are some of the most common reasons that you've seen groomers lose staff?
The typical reason that I see, I think, I guess, in my opinion, what I have gathered through a lot of the um, years that I've been working with people and really watching from afar is I think a lot of owners overpromise or may not necessarily do it because they're trying to get people in the door, but I think it's because they may not know their own business to know what their business can withstand. Right? I've had people who have come in who are, like I said, want to be that workhorse groomer. They want to do high volume, but my business may not be able to sustain that. I actually hire in with really low expectations. I say, I can't guarantee you full time, depending on how my business is. But like when I was first starting, it was, I can't guarantee you full time. I can start you out at 2 or 3 days a week and we can go from there. But here is the nice part about that. Within 2 to 3 weeks, they were up to full time because I just really under promised what I could deliver. And I wasn't comfortable saying I can give you a full time schedule, knowing how I was booking and stuff like that. So I think over promising of what the business can sustain and what to expect.
Yeah, that's definitely a really good business advice because there is a concept out there called, under promise and over deliver essentially. So if you can do that, that makes your business, and that's especially good for your clients. If you can do that, then it's going to set you above a lot of the industry norms or standards. You want to be that higher expectation, that higher delivering type of shop. And that includes, starting with your staff. If they know what they're going into in the beginning, then you're not going to have disappointed staff that it's going to have lead to a higher turnover. So absolutely sure.
I
Now go ahead.
I can also when you said that, it also another thing that I can definitely say because I get this question a lot. I don't pay 50% commission. It's not sustainable.
Mm,
Whole nother episode, but I get a lot. I do hourly plus production bonus, which actually equals out to be about 35%. I've had a lot of people tell me that they can't get people under 50% commission. And I think a lot of people start to also revamp how they do their business just to try to get people in the door as well. So that's going to, if you change, if I had someone walk in and my whole entire facility is hourly plus production bonus, and there's this person who can bring all their clients with them, they're looking for a place to come, but they only want to do 50% commission. Some people will actually humor that idea. And I've had people who I've coached before that have done that. They have everyone set up, they know what works for their business, but there's just this one person they're making this exception for. And what happens is when we make that exception, we're also showing that none of the other rules matter either. We are showing that we can change everything just for this one person. Or I know Crystal and I have had this conversation about 1099 or W-2s. I have someone who's coming in who only wants 1099. Okay, they're going to find another place. It's not yours. So I think a lot of people feel pressure to change what they're doing just to also get people in the door as well.
exactly. You never want to put yourself in a liability situation from tax agencies, from labor department agencies, just to appease someone. And then on a base level, you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you cannot sustain that 50% commission, because if done correctly and you're paying the taxes on top of that, you're going to be closer to 65%. And there's no way that you can sustain that. The business will go under within months. It will go under. And so you don't even need to entertain that idea. So yeah, I've seen that happen a lot. Obviously, the 1099, we had an IRS agent on the podcast, our
Yeah.
podcast episode 1, and he came on and gave us a lot of really good advice, I think. So if you haven't checked that out, be sure to go check out podcast episode 1 with Robert Norlander. And so yeah, that's kind of what I keep telling people is that if done correctly, you set everything up correctly, then your business is going to be protected. Your employees are going to be protected and feel secure in that. And honestly, if the employee is pushing back a lot on the 1099 issue, then you need to make sure that they understand. I have a feeling that they're not taking out taxes properly in that
Right.
because ultimately it does not benefit them to be a 1099 if done properly on their tax returns. So they're actually spending more money than they're making. So I try to sit down with each person individually and explain this, but sometimes it gets, a little in the weeds. But one of the other things that I've seen, Denise, is that grooming is a very fast-paced industry, right?
Mhm.
Intentions tend to run high, especially when you don't have the space. You're fighting for tables, you're fighting for, clients. And what advice do you have for the business owners dealing with workplace conflicts that will inevitably come up?
Oh, yes. So I devised plans on how to communicate. Communication was not my strong suit. Having difficult conversations aren't our strong suit. We want everyone to like us. So I worked really hard on myself, actually. And I always, it's funny when we do these things because I'm not the normal person who says, do this. Like I said, I'm not that person that says, do this, do this, do this. Mine was, how can I spot where problems are? How can I be proactive and help some of these problems? I can't help human interaction. I can't help personalities if they clash. I can help tell them and give them tools and advice how to move forward, but I can't change people. So, what I needed to do was really sit down, get my handbook in place, my policies, my procedures, so my business can run the way that I want it to run. And now I can focus on interpersonal relationships and really watch how coworkers are. I not everything happens obviously while I'm there. I have to sometimes hear it through the grapevine, but when I focused on making it a safe space and that they could come to me and that we can handle this like adults, and I prove that, then the more I get that people are asking me, my employees are telling me when problems are arising, they're trusting that something will be done with it. I learned how to sit down and have those difficult conversations. I built a boundary that I can't allow one person to dictate how the whole facility is going to feel, because that means if I'm saying yes to that one person that you're allowed to behave that way, the other, let's say, 7 employees for that day, or even one, it doesn't matter. It could even be you. You're saying no to that person and saying that even though you're a really good worker, we're going to tolerate this behavior, even though you are doing everything that is brand related, how we want it to be. And that just goes, that's a slap in the face for any of the employees that are doing things properly and running your business the way you want it to run. So when
It
it
is.
came to figuring out how to handle all these different personalities, I had to learn that one person can really spoil it fast. I had to learn how to have the difficult conversations, and I needed to have my policies and procedures in place and the expectations and job duties, because once all that foundation was laid, I now have that that backbone structure to my business that I can say, well, you're not doing this, or you handled this client in this way, and that's not to our rules. So here's your verbal. Here's your write up. Here's, I have to fire you. Like we have to let you go because you're not catching on or you're not doing these things to our standards.
Exactly. I think that's where also a lot of newer business owners miss that need for the verbal and then the official written write up that they have to sign. The employee has to sign saying that they understand,
Yep.
and then the termination. I have another business where I have staff, and we also have a three strike rule basically.
Hmm.
Like we will give you, you're basically their first initial introduction to it is the handbook itself, right? When we get the handbook and they sign that they've received it, they've read it and reviewed it. That's your first warning, essentially. Then you have the verbal writing and then firing. So it's very important because if and when file for unemployment claims, if they decide to get nasty about it and do something legally, you have your business protected by having this structure in place, by having writing in place. For example, I had to let someone go that actually was in my store, my laundromat, my other business that I have, and I had to let someone go because of theft. And it was unfortunate, but I got a phone call from the state unemployment department saying, "Well, do you have this in your handbook in writing?" I said, "Sure do. Here you go, page
Mhm.
so and so of the PDF. I'll send it to you right now." And that's all it took. She said, "Okay, then there you go." I mean, which to me was kind of ludicrous. I'm like, if I say that someone's stealing from me, I shouldn't have to. That should be like go like beyond saying. I shouldn't have to have that in writing, but she asked for it, so therefore it was like a non-negotiable at that point. Like she couldn't come back and say, "Well, I didn't know that that wasn't okay."
Mhm.
And so, yeah, but again, making sure that keeping up with that handbook. Now, I think Denise, you guys at the Ambitious Groomer, you guys help out with that, right? The handbooks for people.
Yeah, we do. So I saw a need because it took me 2 years to write my handbook, and I did all the things wrong. I hired in my first employees at 50%. I didn't have a handbook because we're all adults. We can all work together.
Sure.
The person who I hired in actually had her own business, just needed a place to go. So I trusted all of that. My very first form of like paperwork was a code of conduct sheet on how to treat the employees, the dogs, and my equipment. Because this 50 something year old woman who had her own business, I had nothing in writing and I had to, do you know how awkward that was? Like, oh, I have nothing in place and now you've been here 6 months and oh, look, now I have this form that states how I need you to behave. So that was my very first form. I learned the hard way. And then I knew I needed to get a handbook, and I actually didn't have a handbook, oh goodness. I had a second location, and I still didn't have a handbook. So, I was just sort of winging it, and we put so much thought into it. So, the whole point of all this is we put overthought into it, and we think it has to be perfect, and it has to have every little detail, and yes, over time, every person that we have that has left our facility, there's a new something that I'm adding to my handbook, right? Like we learn from all these things. But I saw this need because we overthink, we wear all these hats. It's the last thing on our brain. Most of us are groomers who are also operating the business now. So not only are you grooming, you're learning how to do all those things. So our service actually is a branded handbook. And what you go ahead and do is when you sign up, we go over, we send you a PDF that you fill out, and we actually help you go ahead and get in. So, like, we love our best practices, right? We're not a regulated industry. So, every facility does something a little bit different. So, like, in my best practices, I have what we do as a whole on the business level: ear plucking, anal glands, seniors, matted pets, those type of things. And we help you design pretty much your branding in your handbook as well. If you're struggling and you're new and you need a handbook, but you haven't thought about maybe your core values, we help you with that. So we have some that you can pick and choose from. So there's no excuse you don't know all the things to go in the handbook. There's no excuse for it because we'll help you get a branded handbook. I do always have a disclaimer. We're not versed in each state has their own variants of what needs to be in your handbook. We design the skeleton for you. You still need to, and you can tell us what to put in there. You still need to do the work of knowing what your state really needs. We contemplated about like learning those things and stuff, but honestly, I couldn't tell you how many people we know. California, I know a lot about because we see like all their different rules and stuff a lot on Facebook. I've designed people's handbooks in California and we've corrected things. But if you don't know what your own state requires, then you're not going to know what to uphold as well. So we really want you to have buy in as well.
Sure, exactly. And that could even look like, getting, legal counsel, even if
Hmm.
you just have like some basic articles for your state, because it is state by state specific for all of this. In fact, we just had the legal team from Reinhardt Law was on the episode before this, episode 3 of Beyond the Shears. So they were also talking about the need for the handbooks and things like that. So it always is recommended, even when they come to you to get, like you said, the skeleton of it, and maybe you can present that to legal counsel in order just to fill in the gaps
Hmm.
to make sure you're completely solid. So I definitely recommend that as well. So, okay, well, thank you so much, Denise. And how can somebody get a hold of you if they were wanting to talk with you about, you know, basic leadership, handbook information, things like that within the Ambitious Groomer?
So I'm hoping by the time this airs, my website is up and running. It's getting finished.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
you can keep an eye on the ambitiousgroomer.com. We're going to have webinars on there that I've done, recorded webinars. You'll have the handbook service on there, and we will be expanding. If for whatever reason it is not up, but it should be, you can reach me at theambitiousgroomer@yahoo.com currently. And or you can find me on Facebook. So I'm really easy to find on Facebook. I do have a group and a page called The Ambitious Groomer. And the group is a private group just to help keep things in line because there's so much misinformation out there about business, but it is filled with almost 1,000 like-minded people that you can go ahead and ask your questions, and everyone's really helpful. And then we do the lives on there as well. So
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I've been on there a couple of times.
yes,
So, yeah,
yes.
yeah. Yes, we enjoy ourselves. We have a good time. We have really good discussions. And so, well, thank you so much, Denise, for your time today. I really appreciate it. And make sure, guys, to go check her out at theambitiousgroomer.com. Is that correct? Hopefully, by the time
Yes.
the episode airs.
Yes.
Yeah. And so make sure you go check out Denise and her crew over there. And thank you so much. And guys, if you loved this episode of Beyond the Shears, then make sure you leave us a comment below. I will have links to Denise's contact information also in the description box. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcast, be sure to leave a comment and go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. We'd love to hear from you. So make sure you also check out Pet Biz Community on Facebook groups where you can have information from Denise and myself for business purposes to help you run your business. So we appreciate you very much, and we'll see you next time on Beyond the Shears.